KungFu exercises? All right. Hello again. For those of you that work here as we kick off this morning, my name is Nathan Harvey. I'm the Vice President of Community Development at Chef. And what I'd like to talk to you about next is what we call Chef-style DevOps KungFu. Now, there are a couple of things I want to say about this presentation before I get started. First, it's interesting because it's an open source presentation. I'm going to talk to you about what we believe DevOps is and define DevOps. And if you believe in this school of DevOps, we invite you to join our Git repository where we keep all of these slides. And you'll find there that there's a README that lists all of the practitioners of chef-style DevOps. So if something here resonates with you, head out to our website to find where we have this pull request, add yourself to the list of people that practice chef-style DevOps KungFu. Now, when we talk about DevOps, why KungFu? Like, what do the two have to do with one another? There are, I don't know, 100 and some people in this room right now, and I would imagine that if I walked around and asked each and every one of you to give me a definition of DevOps, I bet with 100 or so people in the room, we could come up with 200 or so definitions of DevOps. And that's because DevOps really is, well, it's something that you know when you see it, but it is kind of loosely defined. It's kind of like KungFu. There are many, many different schools of KungFu. But you know KungFu when you see it, or certainly you know martial arts when you see them. And so this is sort of a nod to that. DevOps is really defined many different ways by many different groups. And so what I'm going to talk to you today about is exactly how we define DevOps and some of the across folks that practice DevOps or that are on this DevOps journey. And then I'm also going to give you some things that you can take back to work today. Things that you can go back and start practicing with your teams. Some of these things may be things that you already are practicing with your teams. Others may be new ideas. And as we go through this, and I want to remind you that many of you will actually be participating in open spaces later today. So you may hear topics or ideas here that you think warrant further discussion. Keep those in mind because when we move to the open spaces, you should propose those as topics we could drill in on. So here we are, chef-style DevOps KungFu. It's pretty clear that DevOps is reinventing how we run our businesses. DevOps is truly making a transformation across everywhere that people in this room work. Certainly, we've seen how it's happening here at Capital One. Justin has talked about a bunch of places where it's happening as well. Before we go much further, though, I'd like to propose a definition for DevOps. So our definition for DevOps is this. Wow, here we go. Our definition for DevOps. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement. It is focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations, and it is born from the experience of its practitioners. So let's just break that down for a minute. First, it's a cultural and professional movement. You know, a cultural movement like hip-hop, or a professional like lead guitarist, or programmer, or engineer. It's focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations. Now, this particular portion of our definition is a thing that causes me a little bit of anger. It's not the definition that causes me anger, it's the word DevOps. I kind of hate the word DevOps, if I'm being honest with you. Because when I say the word DevOps, and when you hear the word DevOps, what you think about are development and operations. And those two organizations, or those two teams working together. And sure, that is a part of DevOps. But DevOps is more than about just development and operations. DevOps is about building high-velocity organizations. You cannot build a high-velocity organization if the only people in your organization that care about moving fast, moving at high velocity, are your development teams and your operations teams. In fact, if you look out across the DevOps community, you see the community kind of struggling with this word. You hear people from security saying, well, what about security? I think it should be DevSecOps. Or you hear people from testing saying, no, it should be DevQAOps. Or it should be rugged DevOps. Or like, all we want to do is put more words into this thing. So if we're being honest, it should really start with sales and marketing. Legal is part of DevOps. Our customers are part of DevOps. But if we take all of those things and mash them together into one word, that's not going to work. So we use this word DevOps, really it's a giant tent, and everyone is welcome in our tent. And it's not just for development and operations, but it is absolutely focused on how we build high velocity organizations. And then the last portion of this definition is where we always run into problems with defining DevOps. It's born from the experiences of its practitioners. You see, the way that Facebook practices DevOps is very different than the way that Capital One practices DevOps. It's very different than the way that you might practice DevOps. So DevOps truly is born from that experience of the practitioners, the people that are out there day in and day out doing DevOps, going on this transformation journey. These are the ones that are defining what DevOps means. And when we look at DevOps, I'm just going to jump back a couple of slides here. What we are going to do over the next 30 minutes or so is break down DevOps into a series of principles that we believe everyone who's on this journey follows these principles, practices these principles, believes in these principles. Then we'll take it from that level down to the forms. The forms are shared across all different organizations. And you may find that some of the forms you're doing today, some of the forms you're not yet doing, but are things that you want to start doing within your organization. What we won't have time for, though, is to get into the application. And again, the application of DevOps is unique to you. So you should leave here with this idea of the principles and forms of DevOps. How do I apply these back in my office? How do I apply these to my team, to my organization, to my workflow? So we'll start with our first principle. The first principle of DevOps is this. We put our people ahead of our products, ahead of our companies. There's been tons of research. We all know inherently in our gut that when you have happy people that are coming to work every day, they stand a much better chance of building great products. If you hate your job, if you begrudgingly get up and go to the office every day, your chances of building a great product are diminished. But if you love the work that you do, if you're inspired by that, if you dare to dream about the big things that you can accomplish, it's the people that start. That's where it all starts. It starts with the people. We put our people first. People over products over companies. Happy people build great products. Great products have the ability to help companies transform into great companies. The other thing that's true about the people, we don't build products for ourselves. We build them for our customers. We're the people that we're working with. We're the people that we're helping on a daily basis. So people over products over companies. Our next principle is that we are lean. DevOps takes a lot of learnings from many different organizations or many different industries and brings them into IT or brings them into the way that we run our businesses. So when we practice being lean, we're looking to eliminate anything that is not a value add. How do we eliminate waste from everything that we're doing? Whether that's waste in time, that we're having our people spend a lot of time just slowing everything down, working with one another. We want to make those handoffs easy or minimize the handoffs. Whether it's waste in our process, what is the value add of this particular step of the process? If there is no value add, let's just get rid of that step of the process. Another thing that we do in Lean is we often practice organizing our work through Kanban, where we prefer pull methods over push methods. We prefer to minimize the work in progress. If you think about the people that are doing your jobs, that are doing this work with you and for you, the people need to stay focused. Where we can minimize context switching, we can make the people more effective at the job that they're doing, the job at hand. We also practice Kaizen and Kaikaku. Kaizen and Kaikaku are this, they're continuous improvement and disruptive change. So I want to talk just for a minute about Kaizen. Kaizen is this principle that anyone in the organization is empowered to perform Kaizen within the organization. And that says, as you sit there and look around your space, look around where you work, you may notice waste, you may notice inefficiencies. You are empowered to go and fix those things. Go make those things better. Maybe you work in technology, but you see there's a fitness center downstairs, and you see that some process within the fitness center, maybe the way that towels are distributed, is slowing things down. It's making my workout seem to take longer because I'm waiting for a towel. Well, eliminate that waste. Work with that group and make that problem go away. There is a problem, though, with this idea of continuous improvement and empowering everyone. Everyone can make small, incremental changes, which is great. We can continually improve. But the problem is we had earlier. What about that real thing that really drives full change? So you have the question about Capital One, what was the pain point? Like, what was the pain that drove your transformation, that drove you to adopt DevOps? Well, you can't make this huge disruptive change. You can't get up as an individual and say, hey, Capital One, it's up to me, we're going DevOps. It can't be one individual that does that. You need buy-in across the organization. You need support from the top. So this is where Kaikaku comes in, which is disruptive change. You get the entire organization working together. And of course, practicing lean principles, we use small batch and experimentation. Justin touched on this. We want to be continuously learning. We want to learn more about our customers all the time. I want to take a small thing and put it into production, put it in front of our customers. Our customers' needs have changed. Our customers' expectations have changed. Let's learn through small batch and experimentation. With DevOps, we fail. Every single day, we fail. It's amazing. With DevOps, we really need to look at failure as an opportunity to learn. Failure is not this crazy, scary thing that is to be avoided. Now, that said, it's also not the thing that you go and seek out. Like, I'm coming to work and I'm going to make this fail. It's going to be amazing. That's not the type of disruptive change we're talking about, right? But with failure, you can learn so much. And when we embrace failure as an opportunity to learn, we stop doing things like looking for someone to blame. We had an outage in our systems. Whose fault was it? I want to fire that person. Because that is how we will prevent it from happening again. That doesn't work. We need to learn what caused that change and how do we prevent that in the future. With DevOps, we practice ubiquitous workflow automation. As we look to eliminate waste and make sure that all of our people and all of our systems are working on value-added things, we want to automate the workflow as much as we can. We want the computers to do the things that computers are good at, and we want our people to do the things that they're good at. And speaking of people, with DevOps, one of our key principles is diversity. We need to embrace a diverse workforce. When we put our people first, when we ask our people to take failure as an opportunity to learn, when we look for continuous improvement, what we can't do is put a bunch of middle-aged white dudes around one table and ask them to come up with all the great ideas. It's ridiculous. We have to have a diverse group of human beings that are involved in our organizations, that are involved in this transformation, and that are driving us. It's with this diverse group of people, whether it's diversity in gender, diversity in social, economic background, diversity in race, it doesn't matter. Bring all of the people together. We'll make better decisions as a group when you have a diverse input. When you have everyone thinking about the problems at hand and how do we make these changes. And of course, as it turns out, your customer base is pretty diverse also. It's very difficult for you to relate to the entirety of your customer base if everyone in the room looks the same. So those are our principles of DevOps. These are things that everyone that practices DevOps really believes in at their core. I want to move on next to some of the forms of DevOps. And these forms are things that you will practice every single day. Some of these forms, as we go through them, as I mentioned, you may be practicing today. Some may be things that you need to start practicing, or things that you wish you were practicing. One of the forms is we have empowered teams. We talk about Kaizen, we talk about disruptive change. We need teams of people who have the autonomy to make the right decisions. We need management there to provide the proper context and then let our people get to work. And this idea of empowered teams is so key to how do you drive success. We also have to form diverse bonds. I told you earlier how I hate the word DevOps because it's just development and operations. DevOps is well beyond that. It goes way beyond development and operations. Development and operations might be a place to start. I know that when I started my DevOps journey, I was a sysadmin. One of the first things I did, and one of the most powerful things that I did to make this change in me and the way that my company was working, was I got up and I moved. I got up and I went and I sat with the engineering team, the developers that were building the application. I was part of their conversations. By making those bonds, by going out to lunch with them, I started to form these relationships where now we could view each other as humans. We had much more empathy for what was going on, and we started making much better decisions about the way our organization was working. You take that and expand it beyond development operations. How many of you in this room know the name of an attorney at your company? 2 or 3 people in the room. That's probably like, maybe that seems weird. Maybe you say, I don't want to know the attorney because if I got called into the general counsel's office, maybe I'm in trouble. But no, go out to lunch with people from your legal department. What are their concerns? Share with them yours. Maybe you'll find some common ground. Maybe you'll find a better understanding of the customers that you're trying to serve, some of the business ideas and transformations that you're trying to push. Do this across all of your organizations: sales, marketing, legal, finance. Finance is a good one. When you take an application and you have it running in a data center and you want to move it to the cloud, if you don't speak the language of finance, you're going to run into some real problems. Finance understands at the beginning of the year, we start budgeting. I've got all of this CapEx for my data center. I know what that feels like. And now you're telling me you want to go to the cloud and you don't know how much you're going to spend and it's going to vary every single month? Like, we better sit down and have a conversation about that. That's going to be a real challenge. We manage risk. We manage risk by doing small batches. We have validation that comes from our customers. We put changes in front of our customers. We put changes into our customers' hands. We watch how they react to the changes that we've made. We listen to them. We see everything is improving over time. And when it's not improving, we take what we've learned and we put that back into the system. Maybe pull those features out. But by pushing things out in small batches with experimentation and this idea of learning, we are going to increase some of our near-term volatility. There's going to be lots and lots of change. But over the long run, we're decreasing our risk. Think about your wallet, right? We saw Martin talked about your wallet earlier today. Your wallet probably looks like this. Think about an application that you use on your phone. Think about the number of times that application has changed. Changed in small, subtle ways that you probably don't even recognize that it's changed. But if you went back a year in time and used that same application, it would feel like a completely different experience. That happens because we're continuously pushing updates. And this is what our consumers expect. This is what customers expect. Things are always going to be getting better. One of the challenges with putting a diverse group of people together in a room is they might start to argue. They might all have different theories. Sometimes a problem with putting a diverse group of people in the room is you listen to the one with the highest salary. Like, that person must be the smartest. Don't listen to that. Don't do that. You get into these theory arguments, solve theory arguments with execution. Working code wins. Features in our customers' hands. That's how we learn. We don't learn at a whiteboard. We learn when we deliver value. One of the most powerful ways to take this new way of working, these ideas of pushing small batches, pushing changes, learning, developing things faster, one of the best ways to spread these ideas across your organization is through a thing that we call demo days. This is how demo days work. We do these all the time within Chef. So our engineering organization, on a weekly basis, will invite the entire company to join us for demo days. We host them through our video chat platform, so you can come in, you can watch the demos, and we will record them, make them available to everyone. And here's what happens. Let me tell you a story. Over the summer, we had an engineer show up and said, hey, I've been working on this new feature for the Chef server. What we want to do is make it easier for our customers to search the Chef server and find information about what's going on in their infrastructure. And so as the engineer described the feature that he was about to demo, everyone was kind of excited. Well, then he kicked on his screen sharing and he opened up a web page. And that web page was a blank white page with one text box and a submit button. It looked like a web form that was built in 1995. Well, everyone who was not in the engineering organization but was part of that demo, after being so excited about this awesome new search capability in the server, when they saw that, all of their expectations were deflated. They gave up, well, this is kind of stupid. I don't even know why I'm here. Luckily, he's only going to demo this thing for 5 minutes, and then maybe I'll see something cool. So that's good. Well, it got worse. The engineer typed some crazy syntax, was it even English? I don't even know. Search term into that search box, and then he hit the search button. And what came back was a pile of JSON. And now the folks from marketing, the folks from legal are like, oh, I'm so glad that what they really do is limit, we're very strict, you get 5 minutes to demo your feature, and then it's the next day. So they were super happy that it was almost over. But everyone in the engineering organization was really excited. They knew what this was going to turn into. They had the vision to see where this was going. Well, cut to 3 or 4 weeks later, that same engineer shows up, gives the same pitch. I've been working on this feature to integrate this new search capability into Chef Server. And those people from marketing and legal and sales are all like, oh, not this again. And engineering was, excited, of course. Well, then he pulled up his screen share, and it was the Chef web server, UI. So it looked pretty, there were colors. Everyone in marketing and sales was like, yes. All the engineers were like, okay, it looks the same as it did last time. What's different? He typed in some search query. Basically, the engineers were like, whatever, I know what's going to happen. It's just going to be JSON that comes back, and it's going to look pretty. But it did. It came back, and it looked pretty, and we had these search results. And everyone in marketing and sales and legal were really excited about this new feature. Oh, I get it. This drives customer value. But the thing that was really special about that was we learned and sort of demonstrated that what we're doing is we're building these features in an iterative fashion. Build just enough so that you can share it and get some feedback. And that's what he did. He got some feedback. And some of the feedback was, man, it looks really ugly. I wish it looked prettier. And so 3 weeks later, it does. It looks much prettier. It's actually fully integrated into the product. And now we can ship it out to customers who can then use it. And that is a special thing. And when people in other organizations, other parts of the organization that don't work in that fashion, that rapid pace where they're doing things iteratively, start to think, well, how could I change my work so that it can be built in this fashion? How can I share my work with my colleagues who maybe don't even understand what the work is that I'm doing? So Demo Days is a really powerful way for you to take these new workflows and share them across your company. Because what happens then is everyone wants to get on that train. I want to work in that way, because that's exciting. We really can't talk about transformation without talking about at least some tools. And for the love of God, please, 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 if you're not using a proper version control system, what you should do this afternoon is skip whatever session you're signed up for, and you should go learn some Git. Now, if you say to yourself, well, I'm not really a programmer, or I don't need to worry about source code control, I'm not even sure what you're talking about, I think you just don't know how to spell things, that's cool. Just make sure that your teams are using Git, that you're using proper version control systems. It's kind of step 0 if you want to take on any of these technology changes. You absolutely have to start there. And what happens when you're using Git and when you're using these practices and following these forms is you start to do continuous integration. Now, there was a time in my life where I was pretty stupid. Some might argue that time still persists. But in this particular case, it was my understanding of these two words here, continuous integration. I knew for certain what continuous integration meant, and I knew I was doing it. Because I knew that when I started, or when my development team started on a new feature, what they would do is cut a feature branch in my version control system. All right, that's pretty good. And then we would set up our continuous test system to execute the tests on that branch all the time. And now I figured, well, every time they do a code check-in, we're executing our full test suite. That's continuous integration. That's all that matters. That's what it is. That's how it's defined. Of course, that's not what continuous integration is at all. Running your tests on a long-living branch, not continuous integration. The idea behind continuous integration is you don't have long-lived branches. You have very short-lived branches that get integrated back into your master or your mainline branch all the time. And your tests are always passing. The other thing that becomes really important with continuous integration is when your tests stop passing, you stop what you're doing and you fix the build. And if you aren't capable of stopping what you're doing and fixing the build, well, you're always capable of stopping what you're doing. If you aren't capable of fixing the build, you get help from your colleagues, from your peers. And I feel it's important that I remind you that when the build goes red, the way that you fix it is not to comment out the tests. It's not fixing the build. That is not a fix. You need to find the problem and fix that problem. Fix the build when it goes red. You have to have this belief. You have to have this practice. You have to do it day in, day out. Now, one place that I worked on a smaller team, we had a rule that if you left the build broken overnight, that Friday, the first round of beers was on you. It was a good way for us to reinforce the thing I don't want to do broken overnight. Because when I do that, it impedes my colleagues' ability to move forward to get work done. One of the things that we practice at Chef, and that we find many folks that are using DevOps do, is we practice the 4I rule. The 4I rule is simple. It states this: no code makes it into production without at least 4 eyes looking at that code. No code gets to our customers before at least 4 eyes look at that. Now, I'm lucky. My code is always production ready. As I look around the room, I see a couple of other people. What's up, people with glasses? Our code is always production ready, right? Of course, wearing glasses does not allow you to skip this rule, but when you assume that it does, you have an opportunity to learn from failure, oftentimes. So the 4I rule is important. You should practice that all the time. You should write tests. Now, how many of you have written tests before, automated tests for the applications of the infrastructure that you're doing? Right. And then of those people who either have or haven't, how many of you have ever gotten into a heated conversation about what makes a good unit test or what makes a good integration test? Or, like most of the people that have ever written a test have sat around a conference room and argued these things, or have sat these things, or gone on the internet and argued about these things. I'll tell you the trick. The thing that makes a good test is that you execute that test every time code changes. That's it. That's what makes it a good test. You have to, in order for that to happen, you have to first write the test, and then you have to execute it every time there's a code commit. There's this thing about tests. When we're writing tests, we have this tendency, at least when we're first getting started with them, to treat them as a special thing. Tests are just code. Code is a continual experiment. It's always going to change. So when you sit down to write code, you know that in 6 months' time, the code that you're writing today is not going to be so great. How many of you are proud of the code you wrote 18 months ago? Look at that code and say, that's it. That's the pinnacle of my career, those lines of code that I wrote there. That's it. I'm done. I'm going to retire. None of us. Because we get better at our craft. We get better at understanding our problem. The same is true with tests. Write a test. Write one test. Execute it every time you check in code. Write another test. Do the same thing. Do it over and over again. Build up your test suite. How many of you have ever worked on a project where we said, okay, we're going to stop all development, and we're going to spend the next quarter writing a full test suite against this project? Right? Some of you are nodding and smiling. I see it in your eye. You're nervous. You don't want to raise your hand because who wants to admit to that? I've been there. I've done that. Write one test. Execute it every time your code changes. Write another test. Do the same thing. Build that. It has to become a practice. We do all of this so that we can get to continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is simple. Here's the diagram. Can you all do that? We'll make it a little bit easier for you. So the first thing with continuous delivery is that you need to have one path for change. The way that change moves through your organization must be fixed. Any change that you want to put in front of your customers follows this same path. By having it follow the same path, every change that we make, we can all talk about what that path looks like. We can talk about the size and shape of that pipeline. When there's a failure in the pipeline, and I say that that failure happened in the build phase, everyone in the room knows what the build phase means. If you think about your pipelines today, or even your environments today, I'm sure you work in a place that has more than one application that you deliver. Think about the word, I don't know, staging or QA. Is QA or staging, is the definition identical from one application to the next? I'm guessing not. It's probably like staging in this application means this. We call that QA over here, but we have staging, but it means something completely different. This causes real problems and it's a real challenge for us to communicate about things. So if we have one way for change to move through our system, we can all talk about that using the same vocabulary, talk and have a full common understanding of what that pipeline looks like. The other thing is that all code goes through the same workflow. Justin asked earlier, who's application engineers, who are infrastructure engineers? As it turns out, the two of you can't exist without each other. That's kind of a lie. I mean, you can run an application on your laptop, and it's super awesome, and it works there every time. The problem is it's only good enough for you and whoever you can get around the laptop. But maybe you're saying, no, I'm an infrastructure man. You should see the data center I built out. I'm sure it's amazing, but if there are no applications running there, who cares? It's just like a science project, whatever. So infrastructure is code, applications are code. The two go together all the time. They inform each other, and they must follow the same workflow. When it comes to monitoring, when it comes to metrics, focus on availability. The metrics that matter are how quickly did you discover that there was an issue, and how quickly did you remediate that issue. These are the things that matter. And then also, think about what you are learning on. You know someone has been in operations or has been a sysadmin for a long time because they are really, really good at writing Outlook filters to take the Nagios alerts and put them in that folder over there. That's also a great sign of us people before our products, before our companies. People first. When you get woken up at 3 a.m. because your phone goes off or your pager goes off and told about an issue without giving context of that issue, and when you finally discover what the issue is, it's something that you're not empowered to fix, and also something that probably doesn't matter. That is not putting our people first. We need to remember those principles. Practice incident response. Incident response is easy. It says this: the first person on the scene of an incident is the incident commander. That incident commander is in charge of running that incident. It is not about rank. It is not about where you sit in the organization, who you report to, what position you're in. I am the VP of Community Development at Chef. That means I have no code that runs in production. And you should all be thankful for that, even though I have 4 eyes. But there's this weird thing that happens sometimes. We do run software as a service. We run hosted Chef. We have monitoring on hosted Chef. But this weird thing happens. Sometimes our customers catch issues before our monitors do. And sometimes they take to the Twitter sphere and they complain about those issues. And guess what the community manager does? I watch Twitter all the time. Sometimes I am the incident commander. And that's my role. I will now bring together the right resources to solve this issue. When the CEO comes in and says, hey, what's going on with hosted Chef? Why is it down? He doesn't have to go to the engineer who's busy fixing it. He can come to the incident commander who has context. I know what's going on in this scenario. I know I have the best context. There's only ever one incident commander for your incidents. If you have a problem, if there's an outage, one person is the incident commander. Now that person can hand off incident command, but that is the person with the best context. The incident commander also, after incidents, will run a postmortem. So incidents lead to postmortems. I highly encourage you to do postmortems the way that I do postmortems. I'll just describe the way I do them. The first thing I do, and this is probably the thing that's going to make you the most uncomfortable. When I host a postmortem, I fire up a Google Hangout and I live stream it to YouTube. Everyone ready? Like, that feels like a good thing to do, right? Put your postmortems out in public. Well, I do that. Here's why I do that. I want to open up our process and our troubleshooting, our incident control, how we solve these problems to as many people as I can. Oftentimes, as I mentioned, the outages that I become an incident commander for are ones that impact our customers and our community. We run hosted Chef. You might run your own Chef server. The thing that caused us problem may one day cause you a problem. So come on, come learn about our failure. We can learn these things together. We then get into a room. We say this is not about blame. We're here to learn from our experiences. We go through the timeline of what happened, and we focus on two things: the mean time to detect and the time to recover. What changes can we make in our organization to impact these two things? Now, you might not be ready to take your postmortems and put them on YouTube live. I would encourage you, though, to think about who do you invite to your postmortems. And I want you, as a practice, to start opening that up. I would love it if you invited your entire company to a postmortem, just like you invite your entire company to your demo days. Let me show you these new features. Let me show you how we responded to this incident. I'm going to leave you with one final story. And the reason I'd like to leave with this story is I've given you a bunch of different forms, a bunch of different practices. And the thing is, you need to go and practice these things. It's important. So let me tell you the story of this emergency stop button. I have 3 children. My middle son is my daredevil. At the beginning of every sports season, he breaks a bone, so we end up at the urgent care facility. When we go into the urgent care facility, in one of our many, many visits there, I noticed on the wall behind me as I'm facing reception, there's this emergency stop button. It really caused me pause. If you look at this pretty closely, you'll see that this emergency stop button is under plexiglass, and it's locked. So the first question that popped into my mind when I saw this was, if I'm at an urgent care facility and I push this button, what is it going to stop? And I asked that on Twitter, and someone responded, emergencies, duh. And so yes, that's good, it will stop the emergencies. So I still don't know what it will stop, but every time I go in, I ask the receptionist who have line of sight to the emergency stop button, the closest people to it. So I'm checking in, saying, I'm here with James Harvey, he's broken another bone, we need the little x-ray thing. By the way, what does that stop? They look up, they look quizzically at one another, and I'm like, I don't know what it stops. Like, okay. They're like, well, I can go ask one of the doctors. I'm like, no, you don't have to ask the doctor. It doesn't really matter what it stops. Because my next question is, do you know where the key is? And this leads to the same quizzical looks, and they have no idea. It's like as if they just noticed the thing. Well, here's the thing. It's just like DevOps. You cannot walk in and say, hey, we put the DevOps button on the wall. So when you come into work in the morning, hit the DevOps button, and then we'll be good to go. You have to practice these things. They have no idea what the button stops. They have no idea what it's for. So I encourage you, as you take away from today, think about some of these practices that I've introduced you to. Think about how do you practice them in your own organization. And there is this question of who practices DevOps. It's not development, it's not operations, it's all of us. And in practicing it, we're not asking the developers to become operators. We're not asking the operators to become developers. Stay specialized. Do your thing that you are good at, but work with the rest of your organization. Think about the organization as a whole. Thanks very much. That was probably all right, so I'm going to